Welcome to the Masterful Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are so delighted because we have Sincerely Tam here. Welcome, Sincerely Tam.
Thanks for having me.
We are so delighted. She is the founder of one of our favorite podcasts, Sincerely Her. It is a must listen, daily podcast episodes, 2 minutes long. They're bite size, but they will hit you like in the morning with the exact boost you need for your day. I listen to it. It's the first podcast every time. I love it. You hit us with motivation, just like tips from your life. And one of my favorite things is your affirmations on Fridays. But before we jump into that, I want to let you introduce yourself. So Sincerely Tam, tell us all about you.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. So my name is Tam. I go by Tam. It's spelled T as in Tom, A-M as in Mary, U-L-A, but it also is asked that people call me Tam because I like to be convenient for people, if that makes sense. And as Marian alluded, I host a podcast called Sincerely Her, and that came about because I wanted to provide inspiration to people each day. Like I found on the internet, there's so much negativity. So I started writing these bite-sized notes. So it's this 140 character thing, most Twitter or Instagram, you can't write that much. So I started writing bite-sized notes, one for other people, but also for myself. And and that is where I am today. And there's so much more to Sincerely Her, but I'll let you guys kind of think about the podcast, and I'll let you all questions. And as you guys ask me questions, I'm sure I will divulge more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ways that I've actually gotten to know Sincerely Tam is in one of my mastermind groups. And when you launched Sincerely Her podcast and you introduced yourself as a mentor, motivator, and strategist, I was like, yep, that's exactly what Tam is to me, a mentor, motivator, and strategist. And so I am such a fan of how you are able to hear what people are really saying, even if they're not using the right words. You really have a good sense of their energy. And I was just curious on how you really work on your own energy, how you motivate yourself. And I think one of the ways you probably do it is with those affirmations you share on Fridays, because I'm really curious on how you motivate yourself. Are you using those affirmations, and what is it that you do every day? Do you just listen to your own podcast?
Actually, I just started listening to my own podcast every month. I first was just listening to double check to make sure that everything was okay. But now it's a part of my morning routine. As we all know, there's this guy named Sean Croxton, and that's kind of how we all came together. So his podcast used to be my first podcast in the morning, but I said, I have my own podcast, so I have to listen to mine first and then his. But yeah, so a lot of it is I would write notes in my journal, and those notes would primarily be things like I am. So it was never I want to be, it was I am. You guys know, as manifestors, you have to vision yourself being the person or having what is you are pursuing. So sometimes I take notes from my journal and I share them, but you guys don't know that. Well, I think Marian knows on Fridays, I actually do a affirmation, and usually it's from my journal. I just kind of go through the pages and I say, okay, you know what? Somebody may be interested in hearing this message. But yeah, so it's pretty much, just really, I guess it's Neville Goddard says, seeing the wish fulfilled. So I don't try, because we know that's not a great word. I do has that look, but I do should I not even say do my best? Because I think, from the 4 agreements, is it you do your best? So
Yeah.
yeah, so I do my best to myself with the wish fulfilled. And that's where the affirmations come from.
Yeah, and I write down the affirmations because she's very direct. She tells you to write them down, and I wanted to share a few of my favorites so you guys can check out the episodes if you haven't been listening this whole time. Download all the episodes. I think there's like 70 some. You'll get through them real quick. But yeah, one of my favorites that you gave, I think it was a month ago, you said, "I am worthy of all my goals." I love that so much. And another one that I loved was way back in the beginning. I am devoted to changing my life. And what I love about some of these affirmations is that I know that you took time to actually craft them, because these aren't the kinds of affirmations you're just going to see out there, in an Instagram like visual, these like positive emotions and things. These are like legit, like affirmations of somebody who's in it, who's doing it, who's finding clarity, getting shit done, and winning, which is the subtitle of your podcast. So I love that so much.
Thank you. Yes, there are all these affirmations out there. I am positive, but what does it really mean? So I try to be a little bit more specific, and it's kind of a, because like you said, I am direct, and I find myself sometimes reading what I am going to talk about on the podcast. And yes, I do write those things down. Although I can talk, and you know that I can talk, I don't want to ramble when I'm in the podcast. So I most of the time write it out, almost word per word, what I want to say. And then I go back and look at what I wrote and I edit it, because sometimes I am direct. And for someone who's listening, who's not used to someone being so direct, it can be a bit jarring at first. But if you know me, you know that I come from a place of good intentions. And I truly, deep down, want to see people win. And one of the things, me being a mentor and a motivator and a strategist, is that I always was helping everyone strategize and figure. I was always motivating people to do their best. And I've mentored so many people, whether it's 5-year-olds, 40-year-olds. And I wanted to help people not make mistakes that I made. And sometimes you need to make your own mistakes, and that's just a part of life. If you have a kid, your kid needs to make mistakes. But some mistakes don't need to be made, because some mistakes are hard learning lessons. So my thought was, it's like, hey, you know what, maybe I can share a bit about my journey in hopes of helping someone else. But again, I am very direct. I try not to be, but that is the nature of who I am. And I like me. So that's all that matters.
That's really one of the things I really love about your podcast is that I listen to a lot of different stuff. When I listen to yours, I get that swift kick in the butt of let's get it done. And I personally respond really, really well to that. So I love it. Like I listen to it, I'm like, that's what I needed. Like that, I don't need the full explanation to everything. And it's just like, get it done. Let's go. Let's get moving. So I very much appreciate that. And then the other part of it is that, fortunately I have, I'm able to speak with you and am in a bunch of different groups with you. So I get to know and understand and watch you process different things in a different way. And one of the things that I really, really am drawn to and appreciate about you is how you go through a process and you're just very relaxed. Like I get a very relaxed feeling from you. And even if it's in a situation that might not be so relaxing, it's like you process it very well. And one of the things that that also I like that you talk about a lot and you share with people is about how you travel. Now I'm kind of wondering, like your travel experience, does that play into your relaxed kind of nature as far as seeing so much of the world, seeing so many different cultures? Or is it just that your relaxed nature is what allows you to go out and experience so many different things in the world?
Well, Melanie, I think it's a combination of both. I like to think that I was fearless as a kid. I've shared some stories with you guys on how I felt about things. I always felt that who was going to say anything to me? I dressed the way I wanted to dress. I wore my hair the way I wanted to wear it. Who was going to say anything to me? And if they did, I may have handled it as a kid. I'm not like that anymore, but I went through life pretty much thinking that, not that I thought I was invincible, but I knew that I could defend myself, if that makes sense. So when it came to travel, it's very interesting. I lived and I took the leap and moved to New York by myself, and I didn't have any family there. I had lived in Las Vegas prior to that, but I wanted to go to New York. I was just drawn to New York. And you have to have tough skin in New York because you won't survive. That is just the nature of New York. And as an inner city kid here in Los Angeles, you have to have tough skin as well. But it's a different type of toughness in LA versus New York will eat you up and spit you, and it's just what it is, and nobody cares and nobody's going to pick you up. But in LA, we're a little bit more laid back, a little bit more finesse. So living in New York, I started traveling all over the East Coast, Connecticut, Atlanta, all these different places. Melanie, you lived in Los Angeles, place to go except Las Vegas and Las Vegas. I don't know where people go in LA, but in New York, it opened up so many opportunities for me. And I started to see that, I mean, not that I didn't know that it was more to life, but in New York, I really was like, wait, I can go to Miami and be there quick. So after going to Miami, go 1,000 times, I decided I wanted to go to London and I wanted to go to Paris. And I moved back to Los Angeles. I got a passport because I didn't have a passport. Nobody would go with me. I met someone on the internet, and you didn't even meet people on the internet back then. There was this one little networking website, and I was reaching out to various men, and I think they thought I was flirting with them. And I was like, well, no, I just want to meet someone when I come to London. So I started reaching out to women, but they thought I was flirting with them as well. So I met one girl, and she seemed like my type. And this is a true story. I looked at her photo and I said, I would wear those boots. They were some crazy, colorful boots. So her and I became friends. She said, well, I'm going to be in Jamaica, but I get back the same day that you land in London. And I was like, oh my God, perfect. I was like, we can meet at the airport. And she was like, well, no, I'm flying into this airport and you're flying into Heathrow. I said, okay. She went to her home, which was near Heathrow. I was staying in Kensington, which is kind of like somewhat of a posh part of London. And she came over with a coffee machine and an umbrella and a cell phone. And she was like, you're going to need this. And I'm going to date myself, but not many people had cell phones back then when I first started traveling. So her and I became friends, and she introduced me to some people. And one of the persons that she introduced me to, is one of my closest friends ever in the world, which is mind-boggling. She actually lives in Dubai now, but we have stayed in contact. I stay at her house. I've been to Dubai, Qatar. I've been every place that she's lived. I've gone to visit her. But saying that to say, my thought process is that, okay, I'm going to go to London and then take the train over to Paris. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about London or Paris. And I knew I was going to be on my own when I got to Paris. I lucked up and met someone in London, but going to Paris was going to be a whole nother story. On the train, I met a Japanese girl who was from China, who was actually going to UNLV in Las Vegas, and she was traveling before she went to school. I went to UNLV. So I thought, oh my God, this is faith. And she didn't speak much English, and I'll tie it all in. She hadn't booked her hotel, and I hadn't either, because I stayed a little bit extra in London, but I had to get to Paris to get home. So I don't know anything about Paris. For 2 hours on the train, she seemed nice. So I said, well, hey, look, where are you staying? And she said, a hostel. I was like, what is a hostel? Because remember, I just started traveling. I said, well, I'm staying on the Champs-Élysées, however you say it. I didn't know much about Paris. I just knew that that's where I was staying. I didn't realize the hotels were $400 or $500 a night, but I said, that's where I'm staying. So I said, okay, I need her help because I overpacked. And she was really nice. And I was like, well, hostel doesn't seem very nice. So I invited her to stay with me. I said, okay, I'll just get a two beds and you can stay with me. And she was like, no, I don't have money for it. I said, don't worry about it. I was going to do it anyway. Now, anybody else would think that's nuts. But for me, because again, being an inner city kid and thinking I'm tough, I said, honestly, I'll beat her up if something happens. And I know that's not the way you're supposed to think, but that's what I thought. And I will wrap this story up by saying that we had an adventure trying to find a hotel. It started raining and we were walking through the streets of Paris, lugging our luggage, and we finally found a hotel. And we dropped our stuff and didn't know, neither one of us can speak French. We looked at the sky and saw the Eiffel Tower, and we just started walking. And it rained on us on the way. We walked by a Ferrari shop, and if you guys know, you know, Ferrari is like my thing. We walked by all these different stores. It was fabulous. And I got to the Eiffel Tower and I cried like a baby after I bought the little 50-cent miniature Eiffel Tower. And it will forever be a fond memory for me because since then I've gone to over 40 countries, but I took the leap and I believed in myself and I believed everything was going to be okay and that I was going to be safe and I was fearless. And although to this day, like I've been back to Paris a couple of times, it is just not one of my favorite places ever in the world. I tried my best to like that place. I just do not like it, but it will always be dear to my heart. And London now is like a second home. Although most of my friends have moved to the Middle East from London, which is weird. I love London. And I've been back to London probably 15 times. I make a point to make it a stopover. So yeah, so that's how I started traveling. And I've been pretty much around the world on a solo journey. And a lot of it is because no one wants to travel, or they say they're going to travel, but they can never get it together. And I will leave everyone with this: do not wait on anyone to do anything for you or with you, because the longer you wait, the longer it will take for you to get to your destination. And these words were shared to me by someone who I consider a mentor, and they were shared to him by Samuel L. Jackson, you know, Sam Jackson, who's been in all the movies. He told my mentor that the world was waiting for him to show up. And my mentor shared that with me, and I like to share it with everyone. The world is waiting on you to show up. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for that. Another good kick in the butt for me. So travel is one of the things I want to do, but I do catch myself holding back. So once it opens up, I'm contacting you. I need you to kick me in the butt and get moving and tell me where to go and maybe pull me along somewhere in some adventure, because it would be a blast with you. I just know it.
Yes, I just write a list. I have a list. I mean, COVID has stopped my groove right now, but I have a list of places that I want to go. I have not been, like, I feel like I've been so many places, but there are still many places left. Like, I want to go to Budapest. I want to go to Portugal. You know, there are a lot of places that are left. And my advice to anyone that's listening that is thinking about traveling: do what I started to do towards, you know, the latter part of my travels. Go to one country and go to another. I've been able to knock out 4 or 5 countries that way, because once you're over there, it's inexpensive. Like, I did 6 weeks, which is crazy. I don't advise anybody to go for 6 weeks, but in those 6 weeks, I landed in Athens, and from Athens, I went to Mykonos and to Santorini. I came back to Athens. From Athens, I took a
Oh, you just muted yourself accidentally, Tam.
Yeah, sorry. So
you were in Athens.
I was in Athens, and then from Athens to Santorini, then to Mykonos, back to Athens. from Athens to Rome, Italy, and then from Rome to Milan, and then from Milan to Berlin, which was really interesting, and from Berlin to London. And the journey was supposed to continue, but I got there and I got to my friend's house and I laid in the bed for 2 days, and she was like, "Oh my God, get up." I was like, "I'm too tired." So yeah, once you're in those countries, it's easier to move. And one place that is on my list is where Mr. Talos lives. So once COVID is done, I'll be coming over to that side of the world.
Well, hook me up, Tam. We'll go out. You can drive a Ferrari and I'll drive a Lamborghini.
Okay.
So we got to know each other better in the mastermind group. And when you start talking, I know I need to get comfortable because, you got a lot to say. And I love that about you. So when I started listening to your podcast, I was like, okay, I'm downloading the podcast. Well, yeah, this will take a while. And then it was almost over before it started. I was like, hang on, have I got the right podcast here? Like, this is Tam. Like, I want to know, like, why is it so short compared to everything else you like to talk in length? It just blew me away, Tam.
Okay. So I will add a funny story to that before I tell you why. My friend's son, who is 9 years old, who is super, super smart, highly intelligent, he listened to the podcast, and I think it was at that point maybe 20 episodes, but he just listened to them all in one setting, and he told my friend, "Why are they so short?" And I was like, "Oh my God." So for him to say that at 9, I was like, well, maybe they should be longer. But in all honesty, I don't like I love to read, but I don't like to read long emails. And when I worked in the corporate setting, I did not like to respond to long emails, and I never listened to my voicemail, and I'm telling on myself, but I hated it. I was like, what are they sending all these marathon emails for? Especially if you're sitting in the office next to me, just walk over. So although I'm long-winded, I don't want to hear long podcasts, and I don't like to read long emails. So again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, on Twitter, you can only write 140 characters. On Instagram, although now people write these long things, nobody reads all that stuff. Like, we're in a day and age where people just don't have time to digest things. Now, when I write my book, I'm telling you guys now, so you guys can get it when it's ready, it will probably be a little bit longer. But for now, I'm rolling with bite size. I think it's just enough to intrigue you and to keep you coming back and to take action. I guess if I had to summarize everything that I'm doing, I just want people to be motivated to take action and not get on this, spinning wheel of being caught up in the details. So yeah, so that's why it's so short. And that was a long answer for a 2-minute podcast.
I love that so much. Well, Tam, one of the things that has blown me away is that we're in a mastermind together and you keep showing up, and it literally makes my day every time you show up, because I always look at you and I'm like, there's no way she's gonna come back, right? She's too cool for us. And so it makes my day that you do show up and you do contribute and you are vulnerable in our group. And so I would love to hear about the Master Squad. Can you tell us about the Master Squad yet?
Yeah, so I am hoping it will be available next week and I can start enrolling people. But I wanted a safe place for people to talk about their business problems, not necessarily their personal problems, because I'm no psychiatrist and I have problems and I don't necessarily do well with other people's problems. I'm going to be honest with you guys, personal problems, that is. But I do well with people who are struggling to figure it out. And I wanted to create a space similar to what we have in our mastermind, where people can come and talk about, getting their business off the ground. I have a lot of experience in that. Most people don't realize, but I've worked at my fair share of corporate, at corporate jobs. I've worked at Playboy as social media producer. I worked at Ogilvy, which at one point was the top ad agency in the world. I worked there as a talent coordinator, and I worked with a bunch of producers. In addition to that, I've worked at DirecTV. I've worked at Hilton corporate office and brand marketing, and I've worked at Sony Pictures, and I have a management company, and I've had my management company for 50 years. I don't really talk much about it, but people who know, like yesterday, I'll give you a prime example. I negotiated 2 contracts. One, I can't say, well, actually, I can't say which either one of them are, but one of them is a well-known computer, and one of them is a car company that your dad probably would drive. And then I also just negotiated thing for Dancing with the Stars. One of my clients works with Tyra Banks and has worked with her for about 15 years. And I've negotiated pretty much all his deals, whether it's been America's Got Talent, Dancing with the Stars, AGT, well, America's Got Talent, Dancing with the Stars. Oh, and 23 cycles of America's Next Top Model. Hello. Yeah. I actually even went on an international trip one time when they were in Morocco. I was like, I'm tagging along, because when else am I going to go to Morocco? But yeah, so I have so much experience helping artists, especially creative entrepreneurs, that I just wanted to share it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to create a mastermind, but it's going to be a little bit different than a mastermind. It's going to be a squad where you can come each week and talk to someone who may be going through something that you're going through, or someone who's already been through what you're going through, or if you just need a second opinion. As you guys know, if you have a business, sometimes your friends don't want to hear it. And more importantly, your friends can't help you because it's just an opinion. They don't know because they don't have the experience. So obviously not everyone in the group will be an expert, but I'm an expert in a few things. So I'm just going to be there to mentor them. So that's what the Sincerely Her Master Squad is all about.
That's awesome. Well, our audience were super excited when they heard that you were going to be on this show, and we're sorry for the technical difficulties that we're going to have to upload this after the fact, but where could they go to connect with you more?
Yeah, so you can connect with me first and foremost on the podcast. It's available on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. I am there. Then you can head over to my personal website, sincerelytam.com. And if you ever want to have the actual notes from the podcast, you can find them on my personal website under notes. And then you can go to sincerelyher.com and add your name to the mailing list. Well, I don't like to call it a mailing list. You can add your name to my success list, because everything that I pump out will help you be successful in life. So yeah, so that's where you can find me. And I am on all social at I am Sincerely Tam, but Twitter is my jam. So if you want more inspiration, check me out on the Twitter, because that's where I hang out the most.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Tam. And we're just so happy to be in your life and that you're willing to be in ours.
Oh.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys are in my life. And I just want to say one thing, and yes, because I'm long-winded, Talos, I show up because you guys show up, and I appreciate you guys. And the 1 or 2 times that I have missed the mastermind, I've been a little freaked out because I don't like to not show up for people. So thank you guys for showing up for me each week. And thanks for having me today.
Yeah.
We love having you, Tam.
Thank
you,
you.
Tam.